Hi there, my name is Emiliano Caballero and I'm here today to show you my 5 favorite plugins that I'm using currently for mixing, producing, and just creating sounds. Right now I'm in a place where the process of producing, mixing, and creating music in general has just like blended into itself in a way that when I write songs, I already start thinking about how I want to produce them, and when I'm producing them, I'm already thinking in the sounds and how I want the final record to sound like. So the 5 plugins that I'm going to show you here is not a application specific plugin of like, oh, this is what I use for mixing, or this is what I use for producing, whatever that is. It's just things that I tend to find myself going back time after time. And then I'll give you a couple of more towards like virtual instruments that I find extremely useful. The first plugin I want to show you, it's something that I tend to use for chorusing in keyboards. I love chorusing in hi-hats and percussion. Kind of like smears the transients, make it very washy. And I like to combine that, especially in hi-hats, with modulation in panning. So I use a lot of chorusing and auto pans in hi-hats and cymbals and things like this to kind of create a wash, kind of ocean-like movement. And the first one that I want to talk about is this Artura Chorus plugin. Obviously, it's kind of like a recreation of the classic Juno 106 chorus circuitry, which is, for brass and like polyphonic synth sounds, a classic sound. Obviously, it works really well in synthesizers and electronic sounds, but I mean, you don't have to stop there. As I always like to do and to think about is like, why if I use this in like a kick drum or like in a bass guitar? I love choruses in bass guitars actually, especially the high end of bass guitars. One of the cool things in this one is like obviously the mix knob that you can't do with a regular synth. Obviously your classic depth, rate, and phase settings. Obviously in here you can actually create like a mono in, so you sum left and right, which I tend to find is a very interesting sound. In this case, I'm using it in a Rhodes. So let's see how this works and what it does to the sound. We're gonna bypass it. Obviously, it's chorusing, so you have a more stereo effect. Let's try what happens with the mono in. As you can see, it's a more mono signal when you sum left and right in the input. I would say play with these 2 modes. I tend to find myself using mode 2. So in this plugin, I kind of by instinct, I just go to mode 2, but let's see how mode 1 works. Or I think you can even like sum it. Yeah, there we go. This is 1, now 2. I tend to find myself going to 2 all the time, I don't know why. Again, with plugin and bypass. Active. And then what I do, I play with the blend. So this is all the chorusing effect. This is the dry. The 100% blend, 100% wet. As you can see, it's a way more drastic effect when you blend the dry in. Again, I'm going to bypass the plugin. And I guess you can play with the rate, make it like almost vibrato. The lower the frequency, the lower the speed. And you can play with obviously with the face. I just normally don't even care about that. And the depth is basically just how much of the LFO. See? And now we almost kind of have a vibrato. It's something like this. It's not a very expensive plugin. I'm not sure if it comes free with certain bundles, but definitely something worth checking it out. So the next plugin I have in the list is actually what I use right now most of the time for vocal sounds. It's this guy right here called Timeless, which is the version 3. This has been my go-to delay plugin for like the past probably a year. I love a few features in here. Well, I love the plugin in general. I really like this diffuse button. It makes things more like smear in terms of sound. I'll play you something so you have an idea of what it sounds like. This is just my vocals in the verse. But I love the drive because it makes things crunchier. Lo-fi to like give it like more character and like less high end. The diffuse just creates something very smear. I love the crossover between left and right and the width of it. This preset in particular, it's something I love for slapbacks. I'll play you 100% wet so you can hear what it's doing. And the diffusion is being modulated. It's just so cool. You can, if you click here, you can modulate from different LFOs. For example, this is for if you want, which is this. You can create the type of like modulation that you want, like basically the dynamics that you want. Let's like pull it back so we hear a bit of the drive.
Parte del secreto del amor es el misterio, consciente, valiente, da lo mismo, no calla.
One of my favorite plugins. Obviously, you can play with the output, but the main things that I love, as well as this pitch control and the width of the delay. Total mono, and this is a stereo. You can actually drive it more. Make it very like radio-like. And in this case, you can actually change the EQ curve. And there's another beautiful thing, which you can change the relationship of the taps, and as well you can change like, you know, the shape of it, the amplitude, the time. It's just like very, let's say, very flexible. I would say explore different presets. It can be a very daunting plugin. There's a lot of options. I haven't dealt too much with the modulation options because I kind of just want something to have a bass start and just go from there. I end up myself using this slapback a lot. And there's another, I think it's in medium, basic vintage delay. It's really cool. But this Magic, it's basically very true to its name. It's something very interesting. Always, you know, keep an eye on the diffusion, lo-fi and drive. As well, make sure if you are using your delays in an insert manner, be careful with how much mix wet and dry you use. If you are using this plugin as a return, always have mix 100% wet. So in terms of delay, this is one of my favorite plugins. Another favorite delay plugin that I'll show you at the end of the video, kind of an extra. It's something that I use all the time, especially for like guitars and stuff like that. So next one in line, we have one of our plugins at Lipwin that obviously I hold it dear to my heart, and I will not have it created with my team if we will not have loved what we do. And that's basically Ultrabox, which is for the past year and a half, since we released it almost 2 years ago. With production and mixing, it's mostly what I start with. I do a bit of EQ, corrective EQ sometimes, and then I just go straight to Ultrabox. Sometimes, as you can see, in layers. I put Ultrabox in the audio source and then in the bus again. Not doing anything crazy, but I do it for two reasons. Why? Because the compression in Ultrabox has a very snappy, present, upfront compression that it just always, most of the time, works with a vocal. I mean, if it's like a jazz big band record, that might not work as much, but to be honest, I have mixed last year a big band record with Ultrabox in most of the vocals. So, and the other thing that I really love in this plugin is gate. The fact that you can actually control your breaths without having to like go through each and every single breath to get rid of it or like dim it in terms of amplitude. I just find it very quickly and very effective. So let me show you what I want to talk about. Bypass the delay. And here for the breaths. And now without it. Without it. So as you can see, there's two things happening. One, there's more upfront vocals and more aggressive, but as well the breaths are kind of being tucked in a way. They're not disappearing, and that's not what I want, but I just want them to be less present. And especially because it's coming after the compression, that means that those breaths are being, with the compression being more prominent, so we have to like control them even further, which we do with this feature. Then we have the harmonics, which at the end is just even harmonics for warming up the sound. It's not gonna crush your vocals, but it's just gonna add up a bit of more warmth for that presence to be up there. Let me show you. Here how the vocal just comes forward. Very subtle though. Parte del secreto del amor es el misterio, consciente, valiente, da lo mismo. The last section of this plugin is the air EQ. It's a shelf EQ, high shelf EQ, just to give it more air, around like 12 to 10,000 hertz. Let's check it out what it does. Which, if you want, we can actually reduce that high shelf EQ. So it's positive and negative gain or amplitude. Here the sizzle. You can make it darker, more muffled, or like more shiny, brittle. As you can see here in the radar, this is the compression happening and this is the gating, you see? If I increase the gate, this part becomes darker. If I compress it more, you see what happens. So this is the compressed area and this is the gated area. If I want to push more in terms of, more compression, or if I feel that the vocal level is not enough to, have enough gating, I will just play with the input and output. Again, experiment. There's different presets here. So I would say try what works for you and keep me posted if you have any questions. Next one in line is the Phoenix tape plugin by Dave Hill. We lost Dave Hill, I think earlier this year, and he was excellent engineer, great inventor. He had amazing hardware and software, and this is one of his creations that I use it in every single production. It's a Pro Tools only plugin. And every time I'm in Ableton, I do miss this plugin. So I always, when I do the mastering or like, an export, I always try to sneak that in because it always works. Having said that, I have like just, this starting preset that I always use. And then the only thing that I do, I just play with the process. Let me show you what I do in this case. Guitars. I'm gonna bypass it. Hear how just everything becomes forward and present. And the transients are really cool. Off. On. There are different modes. You can play with it. There are some darker modes, some brighter modes. Experiment with it. It's like more boomy, Just try. It's kind of like dark to bright. The descent is kind of my favorite modes. And then just adjust to taste, Very simple plugin, but very effective. One of my favorite. This always is in my sessions, for sure. Next one in line is this one. Soft tube tape. I use it for two main things. One of them, I use it as an EQ. The second one, I use it more as like a transient taming tool. There is this high frequency trim that I just love how shiny and like subtle it is. I remember talking to the guys at Softtube and they were laughing when I told them that this is the main thing I use it for because it's such a great sound. There's not a lot of high end in this guitar, but you can hear how it becomes more like creamy, if that makes sense. I'm gonna bypass it. On. Off. On. Off. The other use that I use this plugin for, it's for electric guitars when there is a lot of transients and they're kind of sharp, in terms of dynamics, and it starts to like be annoying to your ears. So in order to like tame those transients, I use this preset by Joe Ciccarelli, good friend and incredible engineer. It's called E-Guitar Transient Smooth. That's like, if you ever have clean guitars that have like a bit spiky, use this preset because it's just like, every time I have this issue, I use this plugin and every time it works. So for me, use it for high shelf EQ and as a transient softener, if that makes sense. So those are my main 5 plugins that I love lately, but there's 2 more that I really find useful. And the first of them I want to show you is this Artura Echo plugin. In this case, I love this plugin for 2 reasons. One, the input drive, check it out. The input drive is such a cool sound. Sometimes you can even use it as a distortion machine. So cool. But the other thing that I really like about this plugin is this. Because what I will do is I will automate with touch this, check this out, and I will get this out of sync and do this. Play with it. Let me see. And to like create transitions and like weird things, it works so well. Like play as well with like the feedback. You can create such cool transitions and sounds with this, just messing around. It's just so cool. It's just like not many delay plugins do this that well in terms of sound that I just have a lot of fun with that. And the other one that I want to show you, kind of like a Swiss Army knife of delays. It's just so simple, but I love it for ping pong delays, and I'll show you. There is this mode, let's say, called ping pong, that is just like very simple, but it does the job of just basic ping pong delay with a bit of chorusing, sync delay, and we got it. It's just like so simple and good sounding, and you can overload it. Like, Artura has this really cool for input levels of plugins. Okay? Right, one more for good measure. If you want a distortion plugin that is kind of cool, check it out. Let's put it in preamp. So cool. You can actually put the output down, and you can change basically the input that you use, even like more nasty or less. It's just cool. So, with that being said, those are like, I think, my 8. So 5 favorite plugins plus 3. Have fun, break stuff, be creative, and enjoy. Take care.